There is a psychological technique so powerful that the top 1% of successful daters use it without you even knowing. It is called the Pygmalion Effect, and it is not about manipulation in the traditional sense. This is pure behavioral science at work. When you expect someone to behave a certain way, they unconsciously conform to that expectation through a process called cognitive behavioral mirroring. The most attractive people in the dating world have mastered this principle, creating self-fulfilling prophecies that make their partners exactly who they want them to be. What you are about to learn will fundamentally change how you approach every romantic interaction for the rest of your life. The Pygmalion Effect was first documented in 1968 by psychologists Robert Rosenthal and Lenore Jacobson in educational settings. They discovered that when teachers expected certain students to excel, those students performed significantly better regardless of their actual ability. The mechanism behind this is fascinating. Expectations create subtle behavioral cues that influence the target person's self-perception and performance. In dating contexts, this translates to a powerful dynamic where your beliefs about a partner literally shape their behavior toward you. This is not wishful thinking. This is measurable neurological and behavioral change. The implications for romantic relationships are staggering and have been replicated in over 200 independent studies. You are essentially programming another person's responses through your own expectation framework. Let us break down the clinical mechanism of how this works in romantic attraction. When you hold a strong expectation about how someone will behave, your nonverbal communication changes in approximately 43 distinct ways. Your micro-expressions, vocal tonality, body orientation, pupil dilation, and even pheromone release patterns shift to align with your internal belief system. The other person's mirror neuron system detects these subtle signals at a subconscious level, triggering what neuroscientists call expectation congruence behavior. Their brain literally rewires its response patterns to match the social script you are projecting. This happens within the first 7 to 11 seconds of any interaction, making initial encounters critically important. Understanding this mechanism gives you unprecedented control over relationship trajectory from the very first moment. The first practical application is what researchers call expectation framing during initial attraction phases. Before you even speak to someone you are interested in, you must establish a clear internal belief system about how that interaction will unfold. Neuroscience shows that when you vividly imagine a positive outcome with sensory details for just 90 seconds, your prefrontal cortex activates the same neural pathways as if the event already occurred. This is not visualization in the New Age sense. This is literal brain programming based on neuroplasticity research. Your subsequent behavior will automatically align with this internal model without conscious effort. The person you are approaching will detect this congruence through their highly sensitive social cognition systems. They will unconsciously categorize you as someone with high mate value because your behavior signals absolute certainty rather than hope or anxiety. Now we move to the dominance establishment phase, which occurs in the first 3 to 5 interactions. Clinical psychology research identifies this as the behavioral template window, where relationship dynamics become crystallized. You must communicate clear expectations about emotional availability, communication patterns, and relationship progression through strategic behavioral reinforcement. When your partner meets an expectation you have set, you provide immediate positive reinforcement through specific praise that references their character rather than just their action. For example, instead of saying, "Thanks for texting back quickly," you say, "I appreciate how considerate you are with communication." This anchors the behavior to their identity, making it a self-fulfilling trait. Conversely, behaviors that do not align with your expectations must be met with neutral withdrawal of attention, not punishment or criticism. This creates a psychological push-pull that makes them actively seek your approval. The Pygmalion Effect operates through 4 distinct psychological mechanisms that you must understand at a clinical level. First is the climate mechanism. Your expectations create an emotional atmosphere that either encourages or discourages certain behaviors. Second is the feedback mechanism. You unconsciously provide more detailed and encouraging feedback for behaviors that match your expectations. Third is the input mechanism. You create more opportunities for the other person to display expected behaviors. Fourth is the output mechanism. You unconsciously interpret ambiguous behaviors in ways that confirm your expectations. These four mechanisms work synergistically to create a powerful behavioral shaping system. The person on the receiving end has virtually no conscious awareness that this process is occurring. They simply feel naturally drawn to behave in ways that align with your expectation framework, experiencing it as authentic desire rather than external influence. Let us examine a specific clinical case study that demonstrates this principle in action. A research participant we will call Michael applied Pygmalion principles with someone he had been casually dating for 3 weeks. He established a clear expectation that his partner was someone who valued deep emotional intimacy and proactive communication. Within his own mind, he treated this as absolute fact rather than hopeful desire. His nonverbal behavior, conversation topics, and response patterns all aligned with this internal model. Within 6 weeks, his partner's behavior had shifted dramatically toward exactly these traits, despite having shown inconsistent patterns with previous partners. Follow-up interviews revealed she experienced this as discovering her authentic self rather than changing for someone else. This is the power of properly applied expectation frameworks. The other person experiences the change as self-actualization rather than compliance. The relationship dynamic becomes self-reinforcing because both parties believe they have found someone uniquely compatible. The neurochemistry underlying the Pygmalion effect in romantic contexts involves 3 primary neurotransmitter systems. When someone consistently meets expectations you have established, their brain releases dopamine in anticipation of your positive response, creating a reward-seeking behavior pattern. Oxytocin levels increase during interactions where they successfully fulfill your expectation framework, bonding them more deeply to you specifically. Serotonin regulation improves as they develop a stable mental model of how to earn your approval, reducing their anxiety and increasing their confidence around you. This neurochemical cocktail creates what researchers call expectation addiction, where your partner becomes genuinely motivated to continue meeting your standards. The critical insight is that this process feels entirely natural and voluntary to them. They are not aware of being conditioned. They simply feel increasingly attracted to you and motivated to be their best self in your presence. This is behavioral science operating at its most elegant and powerful level. Now we address the ethical dimension that inevitably arises when discussing behavioral influence techniques. The Pygmalion effect is neither inherently good nor bad. It is simply a psychological reality that operates whether you are conscious of it or not. You are already creating expectations and influencing behavior in every relationship you have. The question is whether you do so randomly and unconsciously, or strategically and consciously. The ethical application requires that your expectations genuinely serve both parties' well-being and authentic development. You are not trying to make someone into something fundamentally opposed to their nature. Instead, you are helping them become the best version of themselves by holding a clear vision of their highest potential. Research consistently shows that people in relationships with partners who hold positive expectations report higher life satisfaction, better mental health outcomes, and greater personal growth. The Pygmalion effect, when applied ethically, is actually a profound gift you give to your partner. Let us discuss the specific communication patterns that amplify the Pygmalion effect in early relationship stages. Your language must consistently reference future scenarios as established facts rather than possibilities. Instead of "maybe we could," you say "when we do this." Instead of "I hope you are someone who," you say "I appreciate that you are someone who." This linguistic framing operates on the presupposition principle from neurolinguistic research. The human brain processes presuppositions differently than direct statements, accepting them more readily because they bypass critical analysis. You are essentially installing belief systems through sentence structure alone. Additionally, you must narrate their positive behaviors back to them in identity-level language. When they show up on time, you do not just thank them. You say you are clearly someone who values other people's time. This anchors the behavior to their self-concept, making it far more likely to repeat and generalize across contexts. The concept of expectation calibration is crucial for maintaining relationship momentum beyond the initial attraction phase. As the relationship progresses, your expectations must evolve in sophistication while maintaining consistency in core principles. This means raising standards gradually as your partner demonstrates capacity for growth. Behavioral psychology research shows that incrementally increasing expectations creates optimal challenge levels that maintain engagement without triggering overwhelm or resistance. You must also learn to distinguish between core expectations that reflect your genuine needs and peripheral preferences that can remain flexible. Core expectations might include emotional honesty, respectful communication, and mutual growth orientation. Peripheral preferences might include specific activity choices or minor habit differences. When you hold firm boundaries on core expectations while remaining flexible on peripherals, you create what researchers call secure differentiation. Your partner feels both challenged to grow and accepted for who they are, which is the optimal psychological condition for long-term attraction maintenance. A critical advanced technique involves what clinical psychologists call positive expectation broadcasting through strategic vulnerability. When you share your own growth edges and challenges while maintaining frame control, you create permission for your partner to meet higher expectations. This works because vulnerability signals confidence. Only secure individuals can admit imperfection without losing status. You might say something like, "I am working on being more present during conversations instead of planning my next response. I have noticed you are naturally great at that." This accomplishes three objectives simultaneously. It demonstrates self-awareness, it complements them in a specific way that references a trait, and it implicitly establishes an expectation for continued growth in that area. The research on this technique shows it creates reciprocal vulnerability and accelerates intimacy development while maintaining your position as the expectation setter. Your partner unconsciously registers that you are both growing together, but you are slightly ahead on the journey, which maintains attractive tension. The final principle we must address is expectation consistency across communication channels. Your behavioral expectations must align perfectly across verbal, nonverbal, digital, and social contexts. Research in relationship psychology shows that inconsistency creates what is called expectation confusion, which rapidly degrades attraction and creates anxiety in your partner. If you expect thoughtful communication but respond with one-word text yourself, the Pygmalion Effect collapses. If you expect emotional availability but remain guarded, the behavioral conditioning fails. This is why self-awareness becomes the ultimate prerequisite for using these techniques effectively. You must genuinely embody the standards you are setting for others, not through forced performance, but through authentic alignment. When your expectations for your partner match your expectations for yourself, the Pygmalion Effect reaches maximum potency. Your partner will naturally rise to meet standards that you consistently demonstrate are important through your own behavior. This creates what researchers identify as the gold standard in relationship dynamics: mutual elevation through shared expectation frameworks, where both partners continuously inspire each other's highest development. Understanding the Pygmalion Effect gives you a framework that extends far beyond dating into every area of human interaction. You now possess knowledge that most people will never understand about how expectations shape reality at a neurological and behavioral level. The question is no longer whether you will influence the people you date. You absolutely will. The only question is whether that influence will be random and unconscious or strategic and conscious. The top 1% of daters have mastered this principle, which is why they consistently create relationships that others consider impossibly compatible. They are not luckier or more attractive. They simply understand behavioral science at a level that allows them to architect relationship dynamics from the first interaction. You now have access to the same knowledge. The clinical research is clear. People become who we expect them to be. Use this principle wisely, ethically, and consistently, and you will transform not just your dating life, but your understanding of human potential itself. The power is now in your hands.